shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. For of these sort are there which creep into houses and lead captive silly women, laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts, ever learning, never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. The second text is from 1 Timothy chapter 4, and let's read from verse 1. Verse 1 to verse 3. But if you are normal study, you read through to verse 6. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly, and in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. About 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we started a special weekly Bible study that deals with the last days. Here, we find Apostle Paul trying to draw attention of a young pastor. He understood that the pastor, a youngster, full of zeal, was a human being filled with frailties and infirmity. But then he understood that he is going to face a strong opposition. He's going to face a difficult time. And so, knowing the weakness of this young man and the strength of opposition, he took his time to start to write to him. And then, from 1 Timothy, he began to call his attention to the things that are involved in ministry, the challenges that are there, the qualification, the way to relate with the elders, young women and young men, things to avoid, things to pursue, and the spirit that was in operation at his own time. After he had written and concluded the 1 Timothy, he came up to the second letter. The second letter, he introduced himself and then began to talk to Timothy, drawing his attention to what ministry is all about. That is in chapter 2, and counseling him to study a required life and things he must get himself engaged in order to succeed. Now, I haven't said all so many things to Timothy to encourage him, to help him. And now come to this chapter 3 and said, this know also. This know also. What does that say? You have known some certain things. I have taught you several things. But now what I want to teach you now, if you know all the things that I have taught you, or this one I'm going to talk now, if you don't know it, then what will come upon you because of not knowing what I'm about to tell you will destroy all the things you know. And so he began, he said, this know also. He began to tell him the things that he should know. Add to what he had already known. What he knew by observation, what he knew by hearing, what he knew by learning, by experience, by observing the way Paul went. He said, know this also. What did he say he should know? That in the last days, perilous times shall come. He said, you know everything, but you don't know that as the last days come, that is going to be a dangerous period, a difficult period, a period of terrible opposition, a period when everything will be against you, a period when opposition will come from up and down and from everywhere. If you don't know this lack of knowledge in this area is going to hamper with your relationship with God. It's going to make you to expose yourself to the wind, to the danger that will be at your own time. So he began to show those things, he began to call them out. He went on to say, for men shall be lovers of their own selves. Men shall be lovers of their own selves. Men shall be covetous. Men shall be boasters. Men shall be proud. Men shall be blasphemers. Men shall be disobedient to parents. Men shall be unthankful. Men shall be unholy. And so on and so forth. Now, what was he saying? He said, when the last days come, as you see them coming, these characteristics, these dangerous and deadly and poisonous threats will be found in men. So, we have looked at men being lovers of themselves. So we're going to look at men being covetous, lovers of money. But before we go to look at this one point of men being covetous and men being lovers of money, it will interest you to know that as Jesus Christ went about ministering, in one occasion, in Matthew chapter 24, the disciples of Jesus came to him and asked him a very sensitive question. The question they asked him is one question but has many questions inside it. Let's look at the question so that we can learn what we should learn from it. Matthew chapter 24, and let us read from verse 1. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and the disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple. Fantastic building that was so fascinating. It was edifice. The buildings were edifices that drew Jesus' attention to the great building, to the magnificent building, to a building that took over 40 years to construct and a lot of money spent on it. And hear what Jesus said unto them. He said, see not ye not all these things and a lot of spending. There shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Jesus said, see these edifices, this wonderful building, this thing that the people have spent fortune, this thing that is so fascinating, this thing that when you look at the architectural work and the design and the beauty is so attractive. He said all of them will be brought down. Of course, you know that was fulfilled around AD 70 by General Titus, who came into Jerusalem and brought the temple down. Now, as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples met him again. They came to him. Remember, first they drew his attention to the buildings of the temple and he responded. Now, second, they came to him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? When is this thing we are talking about going to be? And what shall be the sign of the coming and of the end of the war? 3 questions in a swoop. This thing you talk about, the temple, when is it going to be? That's the first question. Second question, what will be the sign of your coming? Third question, what will be the sign of the end of the world? And Jesus in verse 4 gave the answer. Number 1, he said, take heed that no man deceive you. That's the first answer. Be careful. Why did he say, take heed that no man deceive you? Because he understood that there will be many deceivers at that time. So he warned. Now, the second, verse 5, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. So the second answer he gave is that many will come as impostors and as impersonators, and so be careful. The third answer he gave, verse 6, and you shall hear of many wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrow. So he went ahead to show what will be. He showed them there are going to be deception. The people will deceive people using fair speeches and actions that will lead men into believing error. He also spoke about the fears, the brutal trials and afflictions that will abound. So he spoke about wars, he spoke about kingdom against kingdom, he spoke about famine, he spoke about natural disasters, all and all that will be. These are the things that Jesus showed them. When they were, remember they asked 3 questions. The first question they ask is, tell us when all these things will be. This throwing down of the temple, this beautiful edifice, when is it going to be? He didn't mention time, but that has come to pass at AD 70. Then the second question is, what will be the sign of your coming? The third question is, what will be the sign of the end of the world? Sign of your coming, because his coming will precede the end of the world. Until Christ comes, the world will not end. Men will try to end the world, but they cannot succeed. It is only when Christ has come to rapture the church. After rapturing of the church, the Antichrist is given 7 years. The first 3.5 years of rule of peace, the last 3.5 years of violent rule, of dangerous rule, when he will now be as God, enter into the temple, sit, and we want men to come and worship him. Then at the end of the 3.5 years, Jesus Christ will come with the saints to establish his rule under the sun. And his headquarters will be in Jerusalem. And that will last for 1,000 years. It is called millennial reign. After that, Satan will be loosed for a while. Because when he came to establish the kingdom, they will oppose him. He will take hold of the devil, take hold of the Antichrist, and they will be thrown into the bottomless pit. For 1,000 years, after 1,000 years, he will be loose to try the world again. And after that, the white throne judgment, and the new heaven and the new earth and the eternity will begin. So until Jesus Christ comes to rapture the church, the world will not end. Until there is 1,000-year millennial reign of Christ, the world will not end. What the church is expecting now is the coming of Jesus, the rapture. And until rapture takes place, the Antichrist cannot manifest. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 and chapter 2, when you read it, it tells us in one of those verses that there is somebody that is letting, he that letteth. Until he that is letted is taken out of the way, the Antichrist will not appear. So that is it. But then, look at what Jesus Christ showed as signs of his coming. What is pointed at as signs of his coming? The border on events, on happenings on earth. That is what he said. But as Apostle Paul was predicting, are you listening? As Apostle Paul was showing the events, what the last day will look like, he did not talk about event. He spoke about the life of people, the kind of human being. Jesus talked about war, talks about rumors of war, talks about false prophets. His predictions or prophecy about the end all are based on events, what will happen. But Apostle Paul's prediction, what he predicted, is based on the character, traits of human being that will be at the time of the end. It is the trait, the characteristics, the lifestyle of human beings that will be at this time that will inform the activities. When you have good people will surely manifest good activities that will be useful and profitable. But when you have bad people that are devilish, people that have satanic and demonic threats, people that their lifestyle, the way they live, the way they think, and what they are the spirit inside them is pushing them to do evil, then you have evil everywhere. And so Apostle Paul predicted that this is what will be in the last days. And that is what we are trying to look at. So let's return to that chapter 3 again of 2 Timothy. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. Dangerous times shall come. Now, he spoke about dangerous time. This dangerous time, what will make this dangerous time is that men shall be lovers of their own selves, which was explained to us last week Bible study. What it means to be lovers of your own self. You're only interested in yourself. Any other person can go to hell. Any other person can perish. Your only concern is about your personal feeling. You don't care about how any other person feels. Anybody can perish. Anybody can go to hell. Anybody can die of hunger. Anybody can. That's not your concern. Your own concern is about yourself. Then, it was explained to us last week. Today, it talks about another dangerous threat you'll find in human beings. Jesus predicted about what will be happening. He predicted about natural disasters. He predicted about wars, famine that will be. But then Paul predicted about the kind of life that people will live, the spirit that will control people. He said, in the last time, perilous times shall come, dangerous time, difficult time, hard time, unbelievable time, unbearable time. But then this unbearable time, what we give rise to it is that the kind of men you will have are people that love us of themselves. The kind of people you'll find are people that are covetous, people that are boasters, people that are proud, people that are blasphemers, people that are disobedient to parents, people that are unthankful, people that are unholy, without natural affection, truth breakers, and other things that are listed down here. So in the course of the study, we are picking each of the threats that will be in the men of our own time. The spirit that the devil has poured into this period we are, that if you open yourself, you find him inside you. You find the spirit inside you, and you find yourself manifesting this lifestyle that is predicted here. A lifestyle of a man is determined by what spirit is inside the man. If a man must be gentle, then he must have the spirit of gentleness, the spirit of God. If a man must be righteous, then he must have the spirit of God. If a man must be covetous, then it means that the spirit that of age is inside the person. And so he picks up covetousness as one of those things. Now look at Romans chapter 1. Romans chapter 1. And let us read verse 20. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse, because that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to know, be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like into corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanness through the lusts of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves, who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change their natural use into that which is against nature. Likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, born in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error which was meet. And even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient. Now God gave them over to a spirit. He gave them up, and when he gave them up, somebody took them up. Now listen to me. When God gave up Saul, when the Spirit of God moved out from Saul, another spirit entered, took over from God. So he said he gave them up to a reprobate mind, to do things which are not convenient. With the reprobate mind, look at what started happening. Being filled with all unrighteousness because of the spirit that is in them. Fornication. What's the next? Wickedness. And then covetousness. Maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable. You cannot placate them. Unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in doing them that do them. So you see Apostle Paul also pointing out a lifestyle that people that God have given up will start living. And that includes covetousness. Therefore, it follows that the threat that is found in the people that are living in the last days, as is as stated also in Romans chapter 1. What is stated in Romans chapter 1? If you look at it, you find out that some of them are part of what Apostle Paul pointed out. Now, he pointed out covetousness. He pointed out haters of God. He pointed out boasters. If you look at 2 Timothy, you see boasters. You see proud. You see disobedient to parents. You see covenant breakers. Without natural affection. This afternoon, I wrote the Bible study on without natural affection and other points. As I was looking at the word without natural affection and trying to study, I find out that why today there is a divorce in a high rate is because there is no natural affection. Why families are disintegrated is because there is no natural affection. Why there is a high rate of divorce is that we have people that are truce breakers, people that are implacable, people that when they hold on a thing, irreconcilable, A woman is saying, I am right. The husband is saying, I am right. And you call them several meetings to reconcile them. The man, Ekwedo this place, the woman, Ekwedo that place. The man is holding this place, the woman is heading that place. And you talk and 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 talk. At the end, you become tired yourself. They end up breaking because of what? Implacable. Because of truth breakers. So now, let's go to look at the details of this deadly and poisonous threat and the influence of the last day on the world and on the church, which is covetousness. Now, another word for covetousness is simply love of money, love of money, love of things. Now, the love of money is said to be root of all evil. And Paul said unto Timothy that many who pursued it, who pursued wealth, who have love of money, in the course of pursuing what they love, in the course of their covetousness, they ended up piercing themselves through with many sorrows. Let's see it from 1 Timothy chapter 6. If you read other versions in that 2 Timothy where we read, some other versions presented, instead of calling it covetousness, they say lovers of money. So a covetous person is a lover of money. 1 Timothy chapter 6, let's read verse 9. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveting after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Apostle Paul was telling young pastor Timothy that love of money is the root of all evil. That some people, possibly that Timothy knew and some he didn't know, coveted after it, and that led them to error and pierced them, got them destroyed. The word pierce there is, in Greek, is peripeiro. It means to pierce, to torture one's soul with sorrow. What that means is that when somebody is covetous, that person is torturing himself. A covetous person will walk in the day and walk in the night. He turned to become a slave. He walks and walks and walks and walks until the money that he's getting, he will not enjoy the money. So he is turned to servant of money. Covetousness will turn you to become a servant. A servant. Many people overseas, they are servants of money. They serve dollar. They serve pound sterling. That's why one person can hold 3 jobs. Work in the day, work in the afternoon, work in the night. And this they're done from year to year. They do from year to year. No time to rest. No time to enjoy the money. No time to enjoy. So money covetousness will turn you to become a servant, a slave to money. And money, we are told, is a good servant. But what? A very bad master. Covetousness turns you a slave to what is given by God to you to serve you. You start serving what's supposed to serve you. Now, the word peripeiro means to enter, to thrust into sharply or painfully. It also means to make a hole through, to perforate, to force or make a way into or through, to stab. Love of money will perforate your Christian life. When you love money, you know what it means to perforate a thing? You bring Bible or a book. You get, there is a perforating machine. You bring it and you're opening it like this. Piam, 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 piam. You perforate it. The love of money will cause leakages and damages. Covetousness perforates people's life. It pierces. A covetous man is a man that is in danger of being pierced. His Christianity cannot be stable. Covetousness stabs a man just like they take a sharp object and stab a person. That is how it does. It stabs your Christian life. It makes your life miserable. In 2 Peter chapter 2, 2 Peter chapter 2, let us read verse 15. This is talking about people who have gone their way. Verse 15. Which have forsaken the right way and are gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bosor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness, but was rebuked for his iniquity. The dumb speaking with man's voice forbade the madness of the prophet. The prophet Balaam is described here as a mad prophet. What made him mad? Covetousness. Greed turned a prophet to a madman. God looked from heaven. Who's supposed to be a prophet? He now saw him a madman. Who is a madman? A madman is somebody that he finds doing what is very strange. What a person that has his sense will not do. So for the prophet to be called a madman, it means that he was out of his sense. When there is covetousness in a man or in a woman, he or she will do things that are out of sense, out of order, and before God. Every person that is driven by covetousness is considered a mad person, because covetousness will make somebody to do what ordinarily he wouldn't have done. There is something that somebody posted into the leaders platform, Watchman leaders platform. A woman that works in a bank. And this woman that is working in a bank, if people come to withdraw huge money from this bank, she will allot tips. So they will will let the person and collect the money. Eventually, one of the set of people that she directed was caught, and the person confesses. And the people went and brought the woman and tore her dresses, made her naked. She became a mad woman. She became disgraced all over the world. All the people who watch internet, if she's married, her husband will see, everybody will see her nakedness to the whole world. What made her naked? Covetousness. Covetousness. That's covetousness for you. So, now, the word pierce has several meanings. And all the meanings that are attached to pierce, all of them involves something sharp, something penetrating, something that can break, something that can cut through with a sharp instrument. So, covetousness or love of money is deadly, is dangerous. Now, covetousness was what brought the Achan and his family to untimely death. Joshua chapter 7, 19 to 25. He said, I saw a goodly dress and some silver, and I coveted it. So the man and his entire house were burnt down, and a heap of stone raised, because he saw and coveted and took what he shouldn't take. It was covetousness that made Gehazi. He missed the opportunity. He missed an encounter that could have put him in the record among prophets of God because of covetousness. And he brought in leprosy upon himself, upon his generation, because of covetousness. Look at what my master has done. So what his master rejected, he pursued it. And Elisha turned to him and said, is it time that we should go and collect money and collect changers of dress? The leprosy of Naaman now will follow you. So you could see what covetousness did to him. Modern English translators of 2 Timothy, or translation of 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2, New International Version translates 2 Timothy chapter 3 this way. Look at how he translated it. He said, people will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful and unholy. While King James translates it this way, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. So, lovers of money means persons who have intense desire to get more money. Lovers of money are persons who have selfish desire to get money. And to love money is to have and to show great desire to possess something that belongs to someone else, which is forbidden in the Bible. The Bible forbids covetousness, both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. Exodus chapter 20. Chapter 20 of Exodus. Let's read verse 15 and 16. thou shalt not steal. Verse 17, thou shalt not covet your neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is your neighbor. So the Old Testament is very clear about the believer trying to touch what does not belong to him, trying to take what does not belong to him. So in Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 21, the same also is stated clearly. And example, the Bible has example of people that we can describe as lovers of money. Let me show you example, the people that Jesus Christ used as lovers of money. In Luke chapter 16 and verse 14. And when somebody is a lover of money, if he's a preacher of the word of God, that love of money is going to contaminate his preaching. One major thing that have destroyed the truth today, one major thing that has made the church to become defective, what has brought in watered down gospel, what has made a mess of the gospel, is that men who preach the gospel have allowed love of money, they have allowed covetousness. Lovers of money are now handlers of the pulpit, and as a result of that, there is compromise. The gospel is being compromised. The truth is being compromised. People that highly cherished money are now preaching the gospel. When you have a high regard for money, when money bags in the church is having a second wife, you will not be able to talk about a second wife, lest you lose that money back. When money back who is massaging you, paying you a bill, is living in open adultery that is known, you are not going to rebuke him or rebuke her, lest the means of your living big and high will be withdrawn. That's why for the sheep gospel, that's what has brought in another gospel. That is why you see brands of gospel. That's why you see different gospel. As you go from church to church, interpretation differs. What brought about different interpretation is the spirit of covetousness, love of money. In Luke chapter 16, verse 14 and verse 15, and the Pharisees also, who were covetous. If you read modern version, it will say, and the Pharisees also, who were lovers of money, had all these things, and they derided him. They had the preaching of Christ. What did Jesus Christ preach? If you read from verse 1, Jesus Christ was talking about faithfulness. Jesus Christ was talking about probity. Jesus Christ was talking about accountability. And when the Pharisees who were covetous had it, they derided Jesus. What is he preaching about? What is he talking about? Because for them, that kind of preaching is a kind of preaching that will stop income coming into their hands, and thereby affecting their high way of life, their big way of living. Verse 15, and he said unto them, Jesus said unto them, you are there which justify yourself before men. Their covetousness, made them to be men who justify themselves before men. But God knoweth your hearts, for that which is highly esteemed among men is abomination in the sight of God. These Pharisees highly esteem money, they highly esteem material things, they highly esteem things of this life, and that affected the gospel they preach. They began to preach watered down gospel. However, one quality that God never compromised in the men he used in the Old Testament and in the New Testament is the quality of selecting men that have hatred for covetousness. Exodus chapter 18, 20 and 21. When Moses was counseled to choose men that will be used to work with him, he was counseled that the men he will choose should be people who hate covetousness. Now, why should he choose people who hate covetousness? When you put a covetous man in a place where justice is required, when he sees a huge money, a huge thing being given to him, it will compromise justice. That is what we are suffering in this country. We are witnesses of what covetousness is doing. How people who win elections are losing, and people who lost election are winning. As long as money passes hand, cars, lands, material things, big things, dollar, because they don't pay naira again, dollar, pound sterling, and all of those things, then justice will be perfected. In the days of Samuel asked the people, did I convert any man's silver or gold to pervert justice? The people said, you are free. We give you a clean slate, a clean bill. Apostle Paul turned to the people and said, have I coveted any man's bread? Have I coveted any man's silver? The people also gave him a clean bill of not coveted. So, chapter 18 of Exodus, verse 20. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness. He said, place them to become leaders. So, now, covetousness was a major evil that attracted God's wrath to his people in the days of Moses. If you read the days of Moses, it attracted judgment. In the days of Jeremiah, Isaiah, and other prophets, in the days of Joshua, it attracted judgment upon the whole Israel. Joshua chapter 7, God said to the people of Israel, you have sinned, and judgment came. And Israel suffered because there was one covetous man among them. Look at what the Lord said in Isaiah chapter 57 and verse 17. Isaiah 57 verse 17. For the iniquity of his covetousness was I wroth. I was angry with the children of Israel because of the sin of his covetousness, and smote him. I hid me, and was wroth, was angry. He went on frowardly in the way of his heart. He says, covetousness made me to hide from my people and to smite them Jeremiah chapter 6 verse 13. For from the least of them, even unto the greatest of them, everyone is given to covetousness. And from the prophet, even unto the priest, everyone dealeth falsely. Why was every person dealing falsely? When there is covetousness, dealing with one another falsely becomes unavoidable. When there is covetousness, people defrauding one another becomes a common thing. When there is covetousness, lying and not being straightforward in dealing with one another becomes unavoidable. So covetousness or love of money is actually and indeed the root of all evil. So, chapter 8 and verse 10. Jeremiah chapter 8 verse 10. Therefore will I give their wives unto others, their fiefs to them that shall inherit them. For everyone from the least even unto the greatest is given to covetousness. From the prophet even unto the priest, everyone dealeth falsely. When a prophet is dealing falsely, why we members not deal falsely? If you relate with me and you find out that I can manipulate you, I try to get something from you through crafty way, why will you not get from the people you are dealing with? If you go to your pastor and the pastor is talking with you and say, "But look at me. Shouldn't you know that if you sow seed in my life, that sowing seed in my life is sowing into a fertile field, and I was able to manipulate you to do so into my life. I have taught you manipulation. I have taught you that it is good to manipulate. That's why you see people that are going to churches manipulating people. That's why you are dealing with a deacon from a church. And you say, but he says it's a deacon. A deacon has duped me. Say it's a deacon. Look at what he has done me. The reason is because it is a common practice. They learned it from their teachers. Who taught Jacob? Who taught Jacob craftiness? Their mother. Jacob became expert in defrauding, in manipulation, in bargaining. He learned it from the teacher, the mother. And so, what is happening today, while you see corruption, trace corruption to the so-called people that are in a living church, that are handling one key position or the other, but they are civil servants in offices, in INEC, a high officer, but you can trace corruption to his record. And in all these big ministries, and you can trace that they stole 2 billion, they stole 100 million, and I don't even know what somebody will do with 2 billion. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with houses? You have one here, you have one there, all over Nigeria. You have a house at Dubai. You have one in Equatorial Guinea. You have one in Japan and Tokyo and all those places. What are you going to do with all those things? So, covetousness is being taught even in the churches today. Chapter 22 of Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter 22, let's quickly read verse 17. But thy eyes and thy heart are not, but for thy covetousness, and for to shed innocent blood, and for oppression, and for violence to do it. When a person is covetous, he will shed blood. The blood shedding today in the nation, the oppression today you see everywhere, the violence you see everywhere is because of what? Covetousness. The kidnapping, all these kidnapping and fraud and banditry and bunkering and all the evil that feed everywhere today is because of what? Covetousness. He said, your eyes and your heart are not but for thy covetousness. And because there is covetousness in the heart, you shed innocent blood, you oppress, and for violence you do it. So when there is covetousness, as we find today in a society, there will be oppression, there will be bloodletting, there will be violence. So covetousness or love of money is behind all the troubles we have in this place. The setback in this nation is because of covetousness. Go to other nations. What they use $1 billion to achieve in other nations, you will put $10 billion and you will not achieve it here. The reason is because of that. Out of that 10 billion that is put into that work, 9-point-something billion will go into private pockets. Then the contractor will end up not doing the work. Just go to the site and do something. Go to see airports in other countries. Go to see railway stations in other countries and ask them how many billions that they use in building it. And come to Nigeria, see the airports we have in Nigeria, and the railway station, and even the railway, the train itself we have. They will go and bring one rickety abandoned Tokumbo train and bring it and call the whole world to come and open train station. They build road, they just put up mud together and put bitumen on top of it. The money they spent in opening the places are more than the money they spend in building the road. That is Nigeria for you. Until covetousness is killed, corruption will continue. And every man that is natural, not born again, is covetous. But what surprises me is that when you go outside Nigeria, the people that are doing all those things, they are not born again. But you see them using what is for the public. At least they use 75%. They use 75% to do the work. If they are stealing and coveting, they take about 25. But in this place is that 100% is taken and the job is not done. When a new person comes up, he will make noise. After making noise, like the person now that is heading they call FCT minister, is making noise. All the noise is making to collect land so as to, he must have his own and then settle the people around. That's Nigeria for you. Unfortunately, Nigerian people are just looking like people that they use some voodooism to keep down. So, Ezekiel 33 verse 31 and Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 9. They are all talking about the evil of covetousness. And Psalm 119 verse 36. Let's look at Psalm 119 verse 36. Incline my heart unto your testimonies and not to covetousness. That's the prayer that David made, asking God to not allow covetousness to take hold of his heart. Jesus Christ of Nazareth, as I said earlier, had issues with the Pharisees, and that was because of covetousness. Now, look at Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 9. There's something interesting that God will want us to learn from the Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 9. We've been talking about covetousness. There is an aspect of covetousness that is allowed by the Bible. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 9. Woe to him that coveted an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. This is talking about evil covetousness. What does that suggest? That suggests that there is an aspect of covetousness that is not evil. Let me show you the aspect. This is Bible study. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 31. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 31. But covet earnestly the best gifts, and yet show I unto you a more excellent way. He said, covet earnestly. Have a strong desire, a strong quest, intense quest for what? Best gifts of the Spirit. So, this is a good covetousness. When you covet to be a sound child of God, when you covet to be example to youth, that's a correct covetousness, a good one. When you covet to be example in the marketplace, at the office where you are working, you want people that when they want to talk about a Christian, a child of God, when they want to talk about if there's anything that happened in that department, people will begin to say, but he cannot be involved. She cannot be involved. We know that the only person that is free in this place is this person. Like I told us that I was in business. When I was in business, all the shops in Suleja, any day that police people want to raid shops to catch people that buy stolen goods, electrical and electronics, the only shop that will be open in Suleja that day is my own shop. Every other electrical shop in Suleja must close. They must close it down. But my own shop will be open. Even when police people, when they come in, they say, we know you. We know you. We know you. We know those who are looking for. Even police, no. Police force, no. Who cannot be involved? Because if they, sometimes some of them can come with mufti. Sometimes some of them may even want to come to bring those stolen things to see how they can indict you. But when they come and you are there and I'm not there, and they meet the boys who are working with me, they know that in this place is not allowed. You bring something that is sold 10,000 and you want to sell it for us 1,000. You want to even dash it to us, we are not going to accept it. And if you come to buy from us, and as we issue receipt to you, by the time you read the receipt, you read through the things written in the receipt, you will see Bible quotation. And when you turn to the back, you will see tracts, a tract that talks about righteousness and about Christ coming. You can't do that, and then you compromise, and you destroy the testimony, you destroy the gospel. So you can covet to be like that. That's a good covetousness, where in the place where you are, everybody is respecting you. Everybody knows that in this place, if they trace anything, they want to do anything in that department, and they are investigating, the people that are within that place will say, you can investigate others, but not this person, because we know him. We know her. It cannot share, it cannot be a part of sharing stolen things. It can be part of sharing money that it cannot explain the source of it. Those of you that are working in office, they don't bring a huge amount of money and they ask you, come and share, and you don't know the source. You go and share money that is meant to alleviate the poor, money that they have set out so as to give out to the people. Instead of giving out to the people, one person, one director, one PAMSEC will just take the whole thing and then bring a little out of it and say, you people should share in the office. And if you're a partaker of that, money you don't know the source of it, you share. He wants to connect you. You are sharing in their sins. When they bring those shares, you tell them, what's the source of this money? If you don't explain the source of it, I won't be part of it. Lest you take something and bring it into your hard-earned labor, and then you destroy your testimony. And you bring in something like Achan brought into the camp of Israel, and God withdrew and brought trouble. So be careful. That's what a child of God does. So covetousness was a major issue among believers in the days of Apostle Paul and Peter. It was an issue, a very serious issue. If you read Romans chapter 1, 28 to 29, you'll see it. And when you read 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 9 to 11, it's also spoken of. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 3. Let's see. Chapter 3 of 1 Timothy and verse 3. This is talking about a bishop. And Paul was telling Timothy, a bishop must not give himself to wine. He must not be a striker, greedy or filthy lucre, or patient, not a prowler, not covetous. A bishop must not be covetous. So, covetousness was what was a major root of all sin is a major root to all sins in the church today and in the world today. However, the instruction of the Bible is very clear, both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, concerning covetousness. So, in Romans chapter 7 and verse 7, hear what Paul said about covetousness, quoting Exodus chapter 20, 17, making reference to Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 21. Chapter 7, verse 7. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? God forbid. Nay, I have not known sin but by the law. For I have not known laws except the law has said, thou shalt not covet. So Paul said that he came to know sin because the Lord said you should not covet. Chapter 13 and verse 9. Chapter 13 verse 9. For this thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet. And if there be any commandment, other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as yourself. So, covetousness was forbidden in the Old Testament, and it is forbidden in the New Testament. Now, this deadly sin, the deadly effects of covetousness, both to the church and to the family and to the society, are very obvious. The family of Achan was wiped away because of covetousness. Paul told Timothy that many men of God were wounded, were brutalized because of covetousness. Paul and Samuel had a testimony in this respect of not being covetous, or not coveting any man's good or any man's wife or any person's anything. Acts chapter 20 and verse 33. The believer is rather to covet earnestly, as we have seen earlier, the best gifts and not gold. 1 Corinthians chapter 14 and verse 31. 1 Corinthians chapter 14 verse 31. It is chapter 12 rather, verse 31, please. Chapter 12 and verse 31. We've read it before, but let's read it again. But covet earnestly the best gifts, and yet shew I unto you a more excellent way. So, we are to covet the best gift. We are to covet righteousness. We are to covet the things of God. So, hatred for covetousness makes for a prolonged days on the throne and on earth. Proverbs 28 and verse 16. Some people who are pastors, they have lost their credibility. They have lost their respect. They have lost their ministry because of covetousness. 28 verse 16. The prince that wanted understanding is also a great oppressor. For he that hated covetousness, what happens to the person? Shall prolong his days on the throne, prolong his days in the ministry. So, covetousness breeds compromise, lifestyle, in dealing with people on monetary issues, on offering bribes and taking of bribe. A covetous man will not waste time to give bribe and to take bribe. But a covetous person will not delay in offering bribe in order to get what he's looking for, Covetousness have led people to embezzling public funds and mismanaging public funds. When somebody is covetous, he mismanages the things that do not belong to him. We have had cases of people misspending church funds. Church fund being turned to their own personal fund. And that is a terrible sin. And that is ravaging the church of Christ today. So, it follows that covetousness is responsible for lack of accountability and probity. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 9 and 10, and 2 Corinthians chapter 4, 1 to 3. It is expected of a steward that the steward should be faithful, he should be accountable. So, this deadly cankerworm called covetousness or love of money is identified as one of the dangerous or most dangerous threats of the evil days or of our day. So the covetous is also controlled by lack of contentment with what he has. A covetous person is controlled and ruled and undermined by lack of contentment. The young man of God, Timothy, was counseled by Apostle Paul to flee from a number of things, including love of money, including covetousness, because he knew that that will destroy his ministry, that will destroy his reputation, that will destroy his integrity. A covetous man has no integrity. A covetous man has no respect. Whatever you are, if you are a preacher and you are covetous, you lose your respect. When people come around you, as they relate with you, they know that you're expecting something from them. You want what they have. The way you are talking, your body language is you are eyeing that car, that person. And when the person comes, you begin to tell him that in other churches, some people will go to meet their pastor and they will say the Lord told them that they should sow the car into the pastor's life. Does it happen? It happens. And then most of the people, prophecy that people prophesy are influenced by covetousness. I know somebody who saw somebody that was coming to this church who was already a deputy director, going to become a director. He saw him and said that in this church, that God was telling him that he is going to be promoted to become manager in Central Bank. When the person was already a deputy director. And the person knew, if you come to me and you didn't know my position in the watchman, and you said that the Lord is telling you that they are going to make me a parish pastor. Said that that's what God told you. And God is telling you that. We are speaking with all authority and power. I know you are a false prophet. I was talking with a man of God, our father in the Lord, the other day, and he said about somebody, some of these people who came to IGMC meeting and met one lady, Weibo lady that came from, I think, UK. And when they met the lady, he said that God is telling him to tell the lady that she pray well about her child. Pray well about her child. He saw something dangerous coming. So I will be praying for that child. The lady is talking about is not married. The lady has no child. And then in fact, he wrote the letter to the lady And the lady sent the letter to the GS. And when GS called that person, and the person said that it was not he, it was where they went to prayer that one of the people they were praying. You know that some of these people are very fast. That it was not he, but in the letter he said he saw. Now the GS is telling you, but you are now saying it is the person. He didn't present it that well. So that is where we are now. That prophecy was a covetous prophecy. He wants to enter in. The next thing he will ask is for him to send invitation. The next thing is for her to send money and all that. Sometimes some people will come and say that the Lord is telling me to tell you that the Lord is telling me that there is something you're going to give me. There is something that God is telling me, that God told me that there is something you will give me. I say, okay. God told you that, no problem. He has told you that. I'm not in that as to whether he told you. But if he told you, you wait, let him tell me. You wait, let him tell me. So that's where we are now. Covetous practices. And those covetous practices, who are into it, the Bible describes them as costs. People that are under what? A curse. So, now, this deadly cankerworm is very dangerous. And we've seen that young Pastor Timothy was counseled to run away from a number of things, including love of money, and to follow after righteousness, and to follow godliness, and faith, and patience, and meekness, and other things. So we must be deliberate and determined in the fight against covetousness, which is responsible for corruption that has eaten up the church today, and eating up the society, and eating up the nation. We must deliberately wage war against covetousness. Now, before we pray, covetousness has reduced the quality of truth that is preached today. Take note. If you are saying, before, the gospel that people preach is a very powerful gospel. Today, I don't know what is happening. The people have turned to entertainers. The people have turned to, the gospel about multiplication, this, that, but gospel that revolves around this world. It is because of what? Covetousness is what has done it. So if you look at the church today and you're wondering, who have done this to the church? Why has the church shifted? Why has the church deviated? The reason is because covetousness. The devil has entered, and he has used this end time spirit, this end time influence over the church, which one of the characteristics is covetousness. And therefore, you must be aware of covetousness. Now, covetousness has removed, even in some places, completely the truth, that there is no iota of truth again being preached. From there to there, every service, no truth about being born again, no truth about restitution, no truth about life after death, no truth about the judgment that is coming. It is only entertainment. They come, they dance, they beat band, they pray, they prophesy, but no, there is nothing like talking about sin. They distribute money to the people and do what they are doing. And the church is no longer a place where people go and their lives is transformed, where people go and you see changes, but a place where people go for entertainment. That is because of covetousness. Covetousness is the cankerworm that have destroyed the truth about holiness, the truth about restitution. If you preach about restitution, the big man that has 2 wives but is coming to the church will leave the church. If you preach about righteousness, the young man, that young millionaire that can get money from any source, will no longer come to the church. That young millionaire that is tight, every month's tithe is 1 million, 2 million, 10 million, but he has no real source of income. There is no real source of income. He's doing yahoo and collecting money from people's account, and then I'm presenting them before you so that you can pray for his success in business. But when you ask him about his business, he begins to tell you cock and bull story. So many people will not preach the gospel, because if they do, they will lose followership. But in this place, we preach. So if you are covetous, if you discover that what we have explained here now, you are indicted, you find out that some element of covetousness have come into you, you ask God to forgive you, because it is destructive. It will perforate your prayer life. It will disorganize everything about you. It will remove you from what you used to be and disfigure your life as it has disfigured many places. So you bow down your head and let us pray and tell the Lord this end time cankerworm called covetousness that has removed the quality of truth from people, that have prevented people from listening. Covetousness will make somebody, you are in church but you will not hear anything that the pastor is preaching. The pastor is teaching but your mind goes after your covetousness. Pray that God will help you. Let us pray.